All right, it is 2 o'clock. We'll get started. I am recording it, so thank you for turning up. So this one will be very similar to last month's, but in a little bit more detail. But I'm going to highlight exactly where you should actually be looking for your hazards in your workplace to actually provide that. So your responsibility providing a safe workplace. So before I kind of get into the nitty gritty of that, just show you the new kind of feature that I've actually just built inside the helper. It's literally a 16-step getting started guide. So in that guide, if I select that, it'll play a 2-minute little video there, and then it'll actually take the person through what they should be doing. So part of the reason when I was actually developing that was in the same philosophy as I'm going to go over today. So already you've got your sites, your activities, your positions, your employees, your contractors, your plant, and your chemicals inside the system. This is where all your hazards are going to be coming from. They have to. So a hazard's either going to be relating to the site that you're actually working at, the activities your employees are undertaking, what type of employees have you got, and have they got any disabilities or difficulties or whatever it may be, the contractors that you're actually employing and what activities they're undertaking. Sorry, I should have gone down there further. So it's the plant and equipment that you're actually using and the chemicals you're using. Well, from that there, you're actually going to identify all those hazards and risks relating to those items. And then what do you do after you do that? Well, of course, once you've actually identified all your hazards, then you would actually start developing your procedures to actually implement that, and basically developing your policies after you've developed your procedures, or vice versa. You can do your policies first and then develop your procedures. It's up to you. So you'll then develop responsibilities relating to everything that you've actually done, especially the emergency procedures or who's going to do what. And from that there, you're going to develop the checklist to actually ensure that all this is actually happening. And that's where the checklist feature is such a great feature, and why we've actually related it to all the other items inside the system. I'm doing this checklist relating to this activity, relating to this policy, relating to this compliance. So having this in this order really kind of instills exactly what you should be doing. So really, at the end of the day, once you've actually put all those policies, procedures and checklists and everything like that in place and identified all the hazards, well, then you would actually build your inductions. Not the other way around, where a lot of people build their inductions, but the problem is that they haven't inducted them into the correct things that really they should have identified and then built into the induction. And then from that there, you would actually set up your alerts to automatically alert you for continual improvement. So it is very similar to last month's kind of presentation, where you're constantly working your way around like that. So, but you're looking at, you need to identify this in your site register, the sites that you've actually got it. That's where your hazards are going to be coming from, the activities that you're undertaking, the plant items that you're actually using. Sometimes you might be doing this on a day-to-day basis and you're just not realizing how higher risk they are. But you need to put them in priority. As like, say, an example I mentioned once before, I went to a client's place and we walked around their facility, and they had a forklift in a warehouse. And when we walked around and did an audit, went upstairs and said, okay, well, what do you think we need to identify first in relating to putting control measures and so forth in place from the risks that we just identified? And he highlighted that, well, hang on a sec, we need to put a procedure in place in making a cup of coffee because the employees could burn their hand. Now, doing that compared to the risk of getting run over by a forklift, there's a lot of different kind of, so you need to actually, what I'm trying to highlight there is identify your high risks, put things in place, and they'll probably also help you identify the risks underneath that. So it's you're looking at all these kind of where you've got your sites, where your workers are working and what activities they're doing, what plant and equipment they're using all the time, and what chemicals they're doing. And then you will come down here to identify your workers and basically saying, okay, these are my workers and they do this activity, these workers do this activity, etc. So at especially now with you're looking at with the onslaught of COVID, you need to make sure that you are providing a safe workplace. So I'm not sure if you knew inside the system here that we've also got an automated COVID safety plan. So you can actually select this and the system will automatically build you a COVID safety plan. Now, this is based on the New South Wales COVID safety plan. So if you're in different states, you just need to have a look at and update it, but they're very similar, all the different states. But here you can actually do that and then go through and do that checklist afterwards and put those things in place. So they've really actually gone through here and helped you actually, put this is what you should be doing to actually provide a safe workplace related to COVID. So, and I have noticed not many as people have used this kind of checklist as they should. You should be using this all the time to show compliance, especially when, lately with the COVID and what's happening with COVID. So in relation to providing that safe workplace, that's why we've actually been constantly updating the system, putting some of these features inside the system. And one of those features is the new vaccination section. So you can enter vaccinations inside the system, but you can actually publish this register in a variety of reports to actually show that you're actually up to date in what you're doing. So when it comes to COVID, we're trying to actually help you provide that safe workplace. And if I come down here and I just select view, you might have noticed that there's actually the new print ID card inside here. So the system now will create an ID card complete with QR code. When that QR code is scanned, it basically bring up all the person's details in this view section here. So it's just a great way for you when your employees are out on site or whatever it may be, they've got an ID card around their whatever. So and they can just scan it to actually say, hey, this person's up to date. So so the latest kind of things, you should be using that COVID section inside there. And in the usage of this system, it's not being used by many people, and they should be doing it all the time. Because at the moment, it's one of the highest risks you've got in your business. And it's going to get to the point when actually people coming back and if people aren't fully vaccinated, there's going to be that really fine line between allowing people to come back to your workplace or saying, no, you can't come back to the workplace unless you're fully vaxxed. So I'd be really speaking to your solicitor in regards to that. So, but when it comes down to it, under the Work Health and Safety Act, as a duty care of an employer, you've got a duty to actually provide a safe workplace for your employees and yourself. So but there is going to be a fine line. So I'd highly advise you speak to your solicitor before implementing something like that policy and so forth. But hopefully your workers, you won't argue and you won't need to do that. But let's get into the nitty gritty of what you should be doing. So this register here again is, I know I keep on saying it nearly in every single presentation, but it is the most important register inside your system. And at the end of the day, not many people, some clients are using it quite well, but some clients aren't using it to its full extent. So would I put making a cup of coffee in there as a hazard? No, I wouldn't. So would I put, collision with pedestrian? Forklift? Absolutely. Let alone, say for example, that forklift was actually lifting pallets up above the employees' heads and putting them on a mezzanine level directly above those employees. Like, there was that many hazards relating to, if you've got a forklift of any sort, you've got lots of hazards relating to that process. But when you come down to it, if you actually look at a forklift as an example of what you should be doing, as I've highlighted in previous meetings, a forklift would literally use every single register inside this system. Just a forklift. So basically, identifying that there's a hazard relating to a forklift with collision with pedestrians. So obviously, there's a couple of things that throughout that forklift is, yes, I've got to implement my designated walkways, PPE. Might be lights on the forklift, buzzing, whatever it may be. So most of the forklifts nowadays come with a lot of safety things, but obviously they don't come with their own designated walkways, which you need to provide. So you need to try to keep them separated. So if you use forklift as an example, even if you haven't got a forklift, use that same kind of philosophy that there's so many things inside this system that relate to that one item. So what do I mean by that? So I'll use the forklift as an example. That forklift's got chemicals. It's either going to be powered by petrol, it's going to be powered by gas. So or it could be electric. So, but you're looking at, it's going to have some kind of chemicals to it. Obviously, it's going to need a safe work method statement and procedure to actually perform it safely. It's going to be entered into your plant and equipment section. It's going to be entered into your plant and equipment section to show maintenance records. So who does the maintenance of that machine? And this is where you've got to start thinking. You've got different machines and you've got different kind of things that need to actually be maintained. You need to identify who's actually maintaining them. Is it internal employees actually maintaining them? Most of the time it's not. Most of the time it'll be a contractor. So therefore, if you're hiring a contractor to actually maintain any of your machinery, there's a risk, and it's a big risk. And you're looking at what you've got to make sure to do then is that if that person if that person, basically the contractor, doesn't have any insurances in place, what actually will happen is that it'll come back to you, because your duty of care is to make sure that that contractor's got all the insurances in place, but also making sure that they're qualified to undertake their role and they've got safe work procedures. So a lot of people go, no, well, hang on a sec, I've got a contractor, that's his problem. It's not, it's your problem. It's your problem. You're going to make sure that they've got everything in place. So this register here is extremely important when you're actually identifying all these things here. So and then you're looking at, you would develop a policy relating to the forklift, or policy would be in safety in the warehouse, for an example. So again, I've identified a hazard, collision with pedestrian, relating to a machine. And then, say for an example, now I'm actually going there and I'm going to be developing policies and procedures. So a lot of people actually, again, don't use this register as much as they should. What happens if that person does get hit by a forklift? What is your procedure relating to that? So if you've identified hazards over here, well, obviously you need to develop emergency procedures if something did occur. So you've identified the risk relating to activities, chemicals, and plant. Let's just say if it was a chemical item and it's hazardous substance. A lot of people just go, yeah, I've got, I put controls in place. I've got, PPE and this. Well, how about developing the emergency procedure relating to how to use that spill kit that you should have to identify how that's done? So this is all stemming from identifying your hazards in your workplace. It's just helping you link everything together in this system. That's why it has all these registers inside the system. And that's why all the registers all interlink, because I had the philosophy that if something happened here, it was a chain reaction throughout the system. And that's what you should be doing. So once you develop your policies and procedures and your emergency procedures, then that way there, you can actually enforce that by building some checklists to make sure that your staff are actually following things. What's the reason the checklist feature is such a great feature? A checklist is such a good tool because it shows a history of compliance. You should be using that feature every day. So it's especially depending on what you've identified up here. Remembering the checklist feature does link to the hazard register. So you could actually highlight that collision with pedestrian, that you're doing the forklift, checklist or whatever it is, or you're doing the walkthrough workplace inspection checklist relating to the hazard of collision with pedestrian, relating to your policy of warehouse safety and your procedure and so forth. It all interlinks. So therefore, when you come to compliance and you want to get accredited, if you want to go for ISO accredited, or let's just say, for an example, an incident did occur. So when it comes down to it, if the regulators come out here and they investigate it and you haven't got much in this register here, well, it's going to identify that you actually didn't, really meet your duty of care of providing a safe workplace and identifying hazards and risks relating to workers under your control. So this register here, it's what it's all about. So go back to that register and you can see that it will automatically link through. Getting back to the forklift, well, obviously, I'm going to need an employee with qualifications to actually drive that forklift. So therefore, that brings your register here in play. And again, it brings that ID card in play. And part of the reason why you've got your checklist with your pre-start checklist on your QR codes, you stick it on the forklift and away you go. So it's this register here, we're trying to avoid this register being used at all. So it's because you try to avoid it by using this register here to identify these three major things and sites and these two here. From that there, you might want to put volunteers in there as well and clients, but you're looking at from these kind of two registers there, you're going to identify all the hazards that are under your control and why you need to actually start looking at things which are high risk first and then low risk, not wait for the accident to happen and then go, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, there's that risk. Maybe we should put designated walkways in. No, you should have seen it first because you should have done your risk assessment over here and identified that. So the best thing for you to do, when I would suggest, is look at the activities that your employees are undertaking. Look at the plant items that you are using. Look at the chemicals that you're using and make sure all your contractors are up to date and they've got all things in place. And make sure that all your employees got the proper qualifications to undertake the roles of all these items. Because if they don't, you're exposing yourself to risk and you're also exposing the employee to harm. And, at the end of the day, it's all about responsibility, keeping a safe workplace. So I would say, for an example, after this kind of presentation, have a look at some of your activities with fresh eyes. And you might be surprised that you might identify things relating to all these things. Now, you might say, well, we've got lots of plant and equipment items and we've got lots of items. Yeah, it is. And sometimes you'll find that you've got massive amount of items and massive amount of plant items. Doesn't mean you don't do, develop control measures and implement that there. So you want to be identifying all these, doing the risk, start off with your highest risks first. When you do your risk assessment, if it's rated to 1, you want to do it high priority. If it's, say, for an example, going back to that coffee kind of incident, it'd be rated to 6 in the 6 chart. So therefore, it's my lowest priority. So you're going to be looking at things that are high priority first, and then just kind of work your way through. Because when you actually identify those ones with high priority, you'll find that that's going to link you to another thing saying, oh, that hazard there is also a risk to our employees, and we need to implement that. So a forklift doesn't just have, say, for an example, just one kind of hazard. It has multiple different things relating to it. It might be shelving, it might be racking, all these different things. So just look at the activities. What I'm trying to highlight as an analogy there is that you're looking at it's that one kind of item. It might have multiple risks for that one item. So and it might be a machine that you need to use, and it you want them to do a pre-start checklist and not to get their hand done, but it might come down to, hang on a sec, but their clothing needs to be tight or their hair needs to be tied up. So all those different things you've got to start looking at, because putting them in place straight away is going to show you and help keep your business in a safe kind of duty of care. So give that a go and see what how it is. But I'll show you some of the other new kind of features that I've shown you the ID card and I've shown you the vaccination section, which is pretty good and so forth. But you might even actually want to go through. If you go to this section here, give me a week or so. What I'm actually doing is I'm doing that 2-minute video, but I'm going to be doing a 2-minute video on every single one of these subjects. But I'm also going to, say, for an example, do a quick 2-minute video on hazards and so forth. So I'm going to take people through a journey. Yes, it's for people who have actually just started up, but you've got people who are even long-term clients who could actually go through and help them actually, get up to speed and get their system up to speed and using it the maximum it can be. I will be actually doing another tool, putting another goodie in the pack. This is a document I'm just completing. It should be completed in the next week or so, where I've actually built an audit tool. So this is actually an audit tool, how to identify all your hazards and different things in your business. So each kind of section has a audit kind of questions. So you can go through here And it's a great way to do it. I've even got one, obviously, for hazards there. It goes through that process, asking you all those questions. This is going to be available. I'm actually going to put this document in the help section, helpful resources, and I'm actually going to be putting it, in here somewhere. Probably it's, I would say, in here. So then that way there, you can actually download that document, and then you can actually go through and maybe just use that as a bit of an audit, so you can actually identify exactly where all your things are and what's in place. Bit of a refresher, if you wanted to say, so to speak. So it, and then that way there, it'll be interesting and see what you found. Have you found any other hazards or different things that you need to? Oh, hang on a sec, we didn't have this in place, and that was a real big risk. So it, so you can actually do that and so forth. And then you might want to, say, for an example, come down and use the audit builder to actually identify where you're actually lacking. And then that way there, if you do build that audit inside the system and do that kind of thing where you're auditing yourself all the time, you're definitely meeting continual improvement. And if something does happen, it's going to go a long way to protect you, to so that you've actually got systems in place. Well, I hope everyone's safe and well and all that kind of stuff. I'm double vaxxed, so is all my employees. So we're all nearly healthy. So it, take care and so forth. And we've got some other kind of big features coming into the system with the upgrade to the induction builder coming in. It's taking a little bit of time, but part of the reason why it's taking a little bit of time is that we really want to, we've got a new special QR code feature relating to the inductions that's really going to revolutionize the system as well, especially when at the moment you can't assign an induction with the QR code, but this new one, you will be able to, basically the person will record it via the QR code, and it'll actually keep it in their records. So it's just going to make them easier to actually do an induction, instead of, say, for example, them logging in, doing the system. So it's going to be a good little feature. So it's, the corporate risk manager is probably a couple of months away. So it keeps on getting pushed back because we keep on putting all this vaccination stuff inside the system, which I think is far more important at the moment than the corporate risk, but it is still coming into the system. All right, well, that will end today's kind of thing. I know I sound like a broken record because I went over the same kind of areas all the time, but you can obviously see, but this register here is obviously your starting point and the biggest register inside your system. Thanks very much, and have a good day.